here you are in franchising, and training and supporting and coaching and consulting, yet you decided not to franchise yourself. And I'm good with that because I'm a big believer in franchising does not fit everybody's model. And just because I've been in franchising and so many of us doesn't mean that franchising fits everyone. Can you share though why you chose not to franchise your business?
Yeah, for sure. It was a retail bridal store. My wife designed wedding dresses and we would go overseas and manufacture those. And part of the reason why I thought it'd be a good idea to franchise, we could actually put more of our dresses into these other businesses' stores. The challenge was that they were independent. They want to do whatever they wanted to do. They want to carry their own designs. And so ultimately it was a way to sell dresses, but it really didn't fit the model. I didn't really want to go out there and be a franchisor in that particular industry. And the industry has changed quite a bit as well. The other reason why I thought about that is that people started going direct overseas to buy their own dresses, and they didn't have to have the overhead. And so I didn't think it was a very viable business model for franchise. So that's ultimately why I decided not to do it. I met with the attorney and I showed him all my systems and my processes and said, you're the most organized person I've ever seen for doing this. You definitely should do the franchise. But as I thought more about it and talked with some of my friends about why getting into franchising may or may not be the right reason or the best decision for us, ultimately my wife and I decided against that just because the business was changing. And retail is a tough animal anyway for businesses and for franchising, I think, because there's just a lot that goes into that and there's a lot more overhead. And so I think there's a lot of other ways to franchise that are better than within the retail niche. Not to say retail can't be good, but you have a lot more challenges for sure in that particular niche. And so that's ultimately why we decided not to do it.
Yeah. James, what do you think about, what are you observing as some of the most significant changes going on right now in our industry in franchising?
Well, I think customers have become more, or just franchise candidates in general become more skeptical. They're much more hesitant to go ahead and buy. I wrote a book called Franchise Sales Secrets, which I wrote this a couple of years ago about how to increase your sales. And one of the things I talk about in that book is that the game of franchising has changed the way that people are buying franchises. So it's not that they can't buy. There's basically two different categories of people. You have people that have the capacity to buy, and then you have people that have the willingness to buy. And so you might have the credit score, you might have the ability to buy a franchise, but ultimately you don't have the skill set to do a business, be a business owner, or you don't have the time commitment to it. And we've talked about this a little on my podcast as well, is that there's a lot of people that get into franchising that say, okay, I want to be an absentee franchise owner. I'm going to buy this franchise, hire a manager, have them run it for me. But the reality is it doesn't really work that way that well, because most of the time people don't care about the business as much as you do. And I'm just kind of speaking in generalities. While it does work, you can have people, you can hire good managers and run that business and be kind of an absentee, semi-absentee business owner. But you have to be really good at business skills, about training that and making sure that person knows what they're doing. Because if you don't, your business is going to flounder and it's going to struggle. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that I think sometimes franchisors in the past have picked people because they have the capacity to buy, but maybe they didn't have the willingness to buy or the willingness to actually operate the business full time. And I think today, franchisors are much more cognizant of that, much more aware of that. And as a result, they're paying more attention to what does this person actually have the ability to do? Do they have the right skill set? Is it a good fit for them? Is it a good fit for us, for our culture? And so that's a really key component for that too. The other big difference, I think, is that people are they're more hesitant to buy just because of their own fears. There's shifts in the economy. People are kind of worried, is this going to be the right business for me? Is this the right thing for me to do right now? And I think in some cases, that fear, that worry, that's the being scared is just causing people to wait and hesitate and do more research and do more investigation of a franchise. So I think and they come into the process a bit later in the process too, where it used to be when they would come in, they say, okay, I'm interested in this business. Now they might have looked at several different businesses and they're deciding which one is the right one for them. Sometimes franchisors are relying on franchise brokers to do that for them. Other times they're trying to find their own leads and get those. And they just enter the process differently. And so you have to really understand how to get people excited about your brand, your concept, what you do, help them understand how to read an FDD, how to understand how to build a pro forma, how to understand what the business can actually do. And then have them talk with the right franchisees who can actually say, yes, it's a great business for me. I'm glad I joined this franchise. That validation process can kill the sale sometimes if you don't set it up right, or they don't know what they're looking for and understand that as well. So I think those are just a few examples of that. I talk about that a lot more in depth in my book, Franchise Sales Secrets, about how to be successful at selling franchises in today's changing climate and environment that way.
Yeah, the climate is changing an awful lot. In some ways, this kind of feels a little bit, though, Again, this is more anecdotal than anything else. This feels a little bit more like 2004, 2005 to me, when
Yeah.
we were actually, I feel like we're in like another golden age though, where the franchisors that are selling franchises are selling a lot of them. And in some
Yeah.
cases, they're selling too many that they can't support. And I'm talking on the emerging side. And I
Yeah.
don't, whether we want to blame the brokers, blame the franchise sales organizations, private equity, or all of the above, or none of the above, the fact is that it does seem like it is feast or famine, right? You have franchisors that are selling a lot right now. But if you don't have a solid concept, if you don't have a strong enough budget, it's hard to get in the face of potential franchise buyers in today's climate.
Yeah, for sure. And I say this in my book that I think if you don't have if you do not have a system for selling franchises, you're at the mercy of the franchise candidate system for not buying. And that's the truth, is they don't have to buy a franchise right now. They can keep looking. And so a lot of times that's really the issue, is that yes, you can have franchise sales organizations sell lots of franchises for you, but if you don't have the system on the back end to support them, they're going to struggle, they're going to fail, and that's not going to be good for you going forward. Your FTD is going to reflect that. And that's going to be a hard thing for you to sell more franchises down the road. So you have to be really thoughtful about what is the long-term consequence of my decision right now. You can get cash flow immediately, but you can be paying out a lot of cash, obviously, to your franchise brokers and things like that too. Again, they all provide a great service.
Sure.
So nothing against them, what they're doing, but I just, you have to be thoughtful about where's my business going to go as a result of doing this. Am I doing my own lead generation? I'm depending on someone else to do all my lead generation for me. Where do I want my business to be down the road? That's a really critical component to think about as you grow your business.
Yeah, and I want to make a correction on something I said a little while ago. I mentioned brokers and FSOs and private equity, but truthfully, founders are also just as guilty of selling too many franchises, putting the pressure on their team of selling too many franchises when they don't have the capacity to support them. So it is a full team effort when it comes to awarding or selling franchises.
Right.
James, I want to kind of shift gears, thinking about who my audience is. It's mostly made up of emerging founders or people looking to franchise their concept, as well as people, of course, looking to buy franchises. What do you think are some of the key factors specifically to contribute to the success of an emerging franchise brand? How do they get out of emerging and get into becoming a mature brand? What are some of the linchpins to that?
Well, I think a key component of that is being on the right franchisees in the very beginning. That's key, because if you bring the wrong culture, that's going to push people away from wanting to be a part of your organization. If you pick the right people and the right culture and you form that really early in the brand, you're going to attract people to you because of who you are. And I think that's a big part of what branding actually is standing for something people that's meaningful to them, that they can be excited about and they can see what it is you're doing. You have a great section in your book, Running with Your Head Down, which is a fantastic book. If you haven't read this book, you should read this one. But there's a great section there where you talk about Under Siege. That chapter on Under Siege is so good, because I think this speaks to what your question is about. When you guys were making that decision to expand, and you had all those things happen in a row, where you had your annual conference and you had all these different things happen, where you had the radio host go after you and you're bringing what you guys were doing. That's a pretty scary thing. And I think emerging franchisors feel that for sure. They feel that under siege all the time. And you have to have something you stand for that everyone and you and your employees can all stand for. I like that part in your book where you talked about how you got everybody together and said, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're all about.
Yeah.
I would imagine that was a defining moment for you, because people could see we can overcome any obstacle that's coming up if we stick together, we band together, we are all on the same team, we all have the same things we're standing for, the same values we're standing for. That's a critical component. As you know, most franchisors don't get above 100 franchisees. So the first thing you need to focus on is that initial 10 to 20 or 25 franchisees. Are they the right people? I think, again, most people that just get into franchising, they want to get their first franchise sold. They bring on anybody who has capital, and it may or may not be the right person. You have to really think about, is this person going to validate well? Are they going to say good things? They follow my system? A lot of people who want to be in business owners, they want to have a proven system, but there are some people that just want to do their own thing anyway. And that's not the right kind of person to bring onto a brand new franchise.
Right.
You have to have the right people who can actually follow the system, because if they don't, it's not going to be reflective of what's going to happen with them when they join the franchise, because they're kind of doing their own thing anyway. So those are just a few things. I think it's just, you have to pay real close attention to who you hire to help train and help basically bring those people onboard them and help them be successful, and really focus on that. I think if you bring on people too fast, what happens is you deplete your resources too quickly. You don't have enough people supporting them, and as a result, they're going to struggle, they're going to fail, and that's not going to be reflected well in your brand going forward. So I have the right number of people And as you hire people, know what those ratios are. That, okay, I need to hire this many people to support this many franchisees, and figure that out for your brand and how it works. It'll be a little bit different for every franchisor, because some brands, they require a lot more execution on different things. Other, they can just follow the system. But you do have to have a good understanding of what that looks like and how to support your franchisees to help them be successful.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.